Inspiration. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast. Ryan is with us. Jose is, I was going to say sadly, Jose's just absent. Sorry, Jose. Dream team today of Ryan and Lee, not carrying that dead weight for this week. How are you, Ryan?
Dead weight, such a harsh way to put it.
And I know he'll listen to this as well, so I hope you enjoyed that, Jose.
I
That
feel
was for you.
I feel bad because we call ourselves the dream team and Jose like never turns up. So I don't know if he's like worried for his position or what.
Yeah, he's getting pushed out for this. I'm not even sure why he's on it in the first place anyway.
He's not the self-help guy, is he?
No. I don't know what he knows
He's not
about
the
this.
he's not the self-development guy.
Speaking of which, Jose Noya-Inspiration, put that into your Google machine. You can follow him everywhere for your daily doses of inspiration. Right, Ryan, after that good shill, because we do love you really, Jose. We're going to take a pause on the sunscreen conversation till Jose's back with us, because I'd like to keep that going with all three of us. So it's the baton is in your direction. What are we discussing this week?
We're discussing a quote from the 34th President of the United States, and I'm going to give you a option to guess who that might be without
Ooh,
Googling it.
okay.
The 34th President of the United States.
Oh, you just give me an option to guess. I thought you were gonna like give me
No,
a
well,
clue.
I can kind of narrow it down for you. Um, they were born in 1890 and died in 1969.
Oh, of course.
Yes, that makes it so much easier. Uh,
Is that
isn't
my only
Trump
clue?
40, isn't Trump 46th?
Oh,
So
do I
you're
need to count
talking
backwards?
you're talking 12 presidents ago realistically, which is about 50 years,
Oh, about 50 years ago. Hmm.
maybe a bit longer. They do 4-year terms, don't they? 4 or 5 year terms, 50, 60 years.
Is it Eisenhower?
It is. What a guess that is.
Yeah. I
Dwight D.
100%
Eisenhower.
didn't sneakily open Google there and already know the
And
answer before you gave me the clue.
it doesn't surprise me. The quote this week is from the 34th President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and the quote is, "In
Ike to
preparing for
his friends.
battle, yeah, in preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." Now, for some context, he was the supreme commander of Allied forces in Europe during World War II, and he was pretty much the person responsible for orchestrating D-Day from the United States' perspective. So he was pretty good at war. Is that the way that you would say that? He was pretty good at war. Yeah, um,
I
sure.
like the way you've put that, so we're going with that.
Um, so yes, so his quote again, just to repeat, is in preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And it obviously I've not done anything that's anywhere near the level that he's done, but there are times where, or a lot of the time at work or in life, you plan for things, and whatever you plan for doesn't happen. Now that doesn't mean that having not planned for those things originally was a waste of time, because a lot of the time you ensure that what you think might happen does or doesn't happen, and therefore it goes down a particular path. The situation goes down a particular path that you want it to. I think a lot of the time, a lot of the reasons why people's plans don't come to fruition or don't um, work is because they haven't considered all or as many of the potential uh, prohibits, blocks, changes, issues with the plan that they've got in their mind. They think they've covered all eventualities when perhaps they haven't. So I think it is important. I think the quote is kind of telling us that it is really important that you plan for things and that you have strategies and how you face your life or how you face your problems or projects at work or whatever you want to apply it to. But you've also got to be aware that most of the time, if you've planned properly and something doesn't work, it won't work because of something that you hadn't considered or something that's come entirely out of left field. Um, which I think is important to remember because anything can topple over anything and you can do all the planning in the world, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have covered every eventuality, and that can sometimes be life. Um, and I like the quote because it reminds you that not everything is achievable the first time you do something just because you've planned the right way. Other things can come into to effect that stop you or help you along certain paths or roads, and those things are the give and take that life can give us, I think, sometimes. Have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a strange world where you don't just throw out a quote and just throw it straight over with no context whatsoever. It's good. So I'm going to take a slightly different slant on the quote, but then I want to revisit where you are because it's a really good resilience thing you're talking about, which, as you know, is one of my core attributes for life, I think. But the way I've taken that in the planning is, what's the exact words? It's not planning is futile, is it? What was it?
No, the quote was, in preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless,
Right,
but
got it.
planning is indispensable.
Yes. So kind of you take from what you've taken from that is you've made a plan and it doesn't quite work out. I'm taking, and I'll give a work context on this one, which is slightly skewed from it, but in the same wheelhouse. This there's some big IT stuff going on a couple of weeks ago, and I had to we got close, and there were some things that were a risk of being a big problem. So I then spent 2 days building contingency plans for what we'd
Yeah,
need to do if XYZ happened or didn't happen or whatever, um, in the hope that those plans would be completely unnecessary. Luckily for me, everything went swimmingly. There were no issues, and the plans were completely unnecessary. Now, if now moving into theoretical round, if something did go wrong from my previous experience of stuff like this, chances are the exact scenario I'd planned for would not be the thing that went wrong whatsoever. And that's where I think that plans are useless because you can't exactly, especially then back to like the war context, you don't know what's going to happen. But the discipline and the mentality of having a framework and being in that ready state of mind for something, I think is what helps you solve issues and challenges when they come up, because you've got a problem solving mindset there. You might have a framework or an idea, everyone's primed around it, your thinking is in the right way for dealing with it. And I say chances are, back to our good friend Ike, the exact scenarios he'd have planned out probably never happened whatsoever, or completely went awry, or a spanner was thrown in the works. But the fact they spent so long planning, that's like if you're a football player and you're practicing all your set pieces. When it
yeah,
comes to reality, you don't know exactly how the other team's going to react, and you have to adapt on the spot a little bit. But you've ran those drills again and again and again and again and again, and that planning, which is essential, is like you running your drills for what you do if it happens. And chances are your actual plans aren't what happens, but you're a lot more prepared than just rocking up to say, all right, what we're doing today then, lads.
mm, yeah. I completely agree. Um, I, th- I, th- I think the other thing I take from the quote is that it just builds on resilience. It's every time you start a new project, you're not going to forget the thing that toppled the last plan
Yeah.
that you made, and therefore you pre-plan to stop that specific issue happening the next time. And the beauty can sometimes be that the amount of times you run the same project or the same task or the same outcome with a different lens, and it gives you a different result means that you can adapt your approach and process to try and avoid as many of those issues as possible, because no plan is foolproof. You're never going to get everything through, but I think it's all about mitigating risk and ensuring as much success to your project or plan as possible. I think it's really important for people when trying to kind of think about this in daily life or in use use terms, is that it's you need to try and focus on what the process is rather than what the perfect outcome might be, because there will always be things along the road that are going to jeopardize or knock your plan off kilter, and you need to stick to that project plan, or you need to stick to the plan that you have in your mind, because being too reactive can sometimes sway you too far away from what your original outcome was going to be, and that was the most desirable thing to you when you first started. And I think sometimes people can get lost in the hustle and bustle of being reactive to things that crop up and scenarios that exist around them when they make their plans and try and execute them.
As a wise man we know, I think name's Joseph Noya-Inspiration or something like that, once said, "You either succeed or you learn." And that's what you're saying there with that for me exactly is,
Yeah,
you know, it either goes well and actually you still learn, or it doesn't and you take those learnings and you fold them into the next thing. Like you said, either you'd have missed a risk that's really apparent next time, or you just learn to cover more contingencies, you build up your resilience to what happens. But I think it's absolutely that, like you said, is that you're just building your skill every time you learn a lesson, and the quickest way to learn is through failure.
yeah, yeah. It's a weird thing to say, but that is the quickest way to learn something is either get it right the first time or fail enough times until you do. Um, yeah,
One
yeah,
day
and
I'll get to that point where I actually get it right.
yeah, I think so with the rest of us, mate. To be honest, um, but I think a lot of what planning does can allow you to have some freedom to understand, oh, this might work, or this might not work, and kind of then being able to see if throwing caution to the wind is the right thing to do, or being a bit more laid back or structured to your approach may work. And there isn't a singular key that opens the same lock every time that you come across things that go wrong. And it's about having that resilience and that flexibility and that toolkit of soft skills and perhaps support around you that you can dip into to achieve the outcome that you're trying to achieve. Um, so something else that can help when trying to plan and trying to be strategic and getting the right outcomes and not necessarily being too outcome driven is micro planning your um, micro planning your plan rather than life planning, so to speak. So rather than thinking about how do I achieve the end goal, and I think we've spoken about this so many times, but rather than thinking about achieving the end goal, think about what's the first thing you've got to get sorted to be able to get on the road, and then what's the next thing after that, then the next thing after that. So rather than working from a completed idea backwards, you've got to work from the ground up. That's the
Yes.
best way that you can keep yourself in focus, in scope, and where you want to be realistically. um, yeah, and I think there's a lot of quotes that we've touched on in the past of this podcast that kind of talking through similar things that we're trying to address today. But I think I think you touched on it that there is multiple ways that the quote can come across, and I think something else that reaches out to me or shouts out to me is that um, a lot of these scenarios or a lot of these things are just doors on the way to the success of your process or your project or your plan. And as you said, or what Jose says, it's you either succeed or you learn. Um, and even in successes you can learn, and in failures you can learn. And I think as long as you are resilient enough and have enough bounce back ability is another word I like to use, then you'll always find that you have a potential place to achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve and the plans that you want to achieve. Do, do, do. Don't know if you have anything else to add to that, mate.
I really, like I said, this podcast is like our own little development journey, our own check-in. It's become far less. I think I said this before at the start, like it was going to be imparting wisdom to the world, and actually, it's more a reflective check-in on where we are, which we ultimately hope guides people down the same kind of path we're going down. So we we talk about similar themes, and they kind of bracket themselves together. That we kind of go through waves of different themes. So it's not often we talk about a quote where I'm like, whoa, that's really changed my perspective hugely, rather than little nudges and ratifying it, which is good. That's our rhythm. But this one's kind of, I say I looked up and there's a quote of the quote. So I found an article talking about this quote, and what they've put in it kind of summarising what he's talking about. It says, not a plan, but the process of planning is what prepares you for the unexpected. And
Yeah,
I really like that framing. And I think I'm going to add this to my kind of you said it earlier, toolbox of things that we've got. I really like the framing, and just again, it's just a great mentality to have, to reassure you that you don't have to have covered everything, but by going through the planning and getting that right, you're ready for action because you
You
can
give
go
yourself every
through,
chance.
right, let's assess the problem, let's understand what we can do, let's think of a solution, because you've trained yourself to do it kind of theoretically. I don't think, I've not heard the quote before. I really like this. I think it's a really, really solid concept. Just a great to NLP, a great framing device.
Yeah,
I'm even thinking I'm going to sneak away to stick this on LinkedIn over the next few weeks and totally give you no credit around this whatsoever.
that's absolutely acceptable. It's a story.
But
It's
in
a
your
story of my
head,
life. It's a story
know
of my
that I'm
life. People
thinking of
taking
you
my
when I do
ideas.
it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Lee's become one of those LinkedIn guys. For those of you that follow the podcast, you know the ones I mean.
Cool dudes, is that what you're saying?
The ones that get up at 4 a.m. and have achieved life's work done
Oh,
by
that's
like
definitely not.
5:37 a.m. or something silly like that.
I can assure you, if I ever posted that, that would 100% be a lie.
um,
Moving on swiftly, I think, Grifster. Some
yes,
Lee
mate. Yeah,
criticisms.
Lee. No, don't criticize Lee. We love Lee on this podcast. I think I think the quote's strong. I think we've spoken about kind of how people can infer it into their daily lives or their working lives or anything that they've got going on, and I think there's a lot of information that we give out on these podcasts that I think people are happy to take away and glean from, and I think this is another example of that. Yeah, and I think if you're going to ask me for takeaways shortly, which I think usually you probably will, I think my biggest takeaway from this is that no matter how much planning you do, life won't go exactly as you expect it to, and I think that's such an important thing to remember because that's uh, heavily one of the reasons why a lot of plans don't often come to fruition.
I'll give you here on the takeaway bit. You're right. I was going to ask. There's a similar quote from one Mike Tyson, which is the same quote in different words. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That
And
is
it
true.
follows up with the line to say, adapt your plan or you'll get punched again. And I like that. The whole concept is what I'm taking from this today. I love it. I'm a big fan of this. You have added to my buffet of learning that I like to talk about.
I try my best.
Everyone out there, if we've added to your buffet, tell friends, tell family, get them to listen to the podcast. We've been looking through, and people, there are people around the world in places I would not expect to regularly listen to this. So we thank you very much. Leave comments wherever you're listening, leave a review, subscribe, all those good things, and visit us over at inspirationnation.org.uk to get yourself hoodie, t-shirt, mug, phone case, whatever it is that you desire. Inspirational.org.uk, and our man that is not here, Jose Noya, the reason we do this podcast, stick his name into Google, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those places. He is there and he is throwing out daily wisdom. Throw him a follow as well. And I used to, a while ago, I joke on this, and I say joke's a strong word. I try and be funny and say MySpace, Bebo, all those places like that. I was watching a show the other day that was so old that they actually were saying, oh, have they looked at MySpace? Have they looked at Bebo? And I'm like, oh my God, that's me on the podcast. These things were real, Ryan Rutz, you see. I haven't just made up the names.
No, I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're not.
And on this very rambly note, is there anything else to say before I wrap us up?
No, I think we're good, mate. I think we've got it.
In which case we will say 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation. We need to do the thing, by the way. Catch you guys
See you
later.
guys later.
Good Erin. Well done.
Thank you.